Yeah, every fan base has their bad apples. It's just that the fact that the Yankees have, one of the largest fan bases kind of amplifies that.
What's going on, guys? My name is Diller. I'm bringing back another podcast for you guys, and I am here with my co-host Clemente. How are you doing, my good friend?
I'm doing pretty good, Dylan. Pretty good. Just, a couple more weeks left in the semester. Just, hit the home stretch and just getting ready to graduate.
Yeah, both me and you both, because I graduate. I don't know what your date is, but I graduate in like exactly 2 weeks. So it's kind of hitting me in the feels a little bit. Are you getting to that point where you're kind of like, I've been working my whole life to this point, and you're just kind of like, now it's all of a sudden hitting me that I'm going to be graduating and, uh, finding my own career path.
Yeah, it's hitting me a little bit, but, I've been more focused on, just getting these final, assignments done. But I feel like once I turn those in, it's going to hit me like a brick of walls.
Yeah, no kidding. Is there anything that you in particularly want to do? Like, what's kind of your? I mean, I know that things can change, obviously, but what's kind of your end goal, or a place that you'd be like, if this is where I sit for the rest of my life, I'd be completely happy with life.
Honestly, probably just, being a Thunder beat writer full time. I kind of do it right now for part time, but I want to be able to, make an entire living off of that and not have to work, multiple jobs to do that. So really, that's probably the ultimate goal for me. But yeah, what about you?
Just anything baseball related. I was kind of narrowing my options and just being like, I want to do something with Yankees. But honestly, I'd be happy to do anything with anyone. And honestly, I would prefer to work with all 30 teams in whatever fashion than just working with one team because you're so narrowed. You don't have as many options. There's not as much that you can do with one team compared to 30 teams. So much rather do work with just MLB in general, not kind of limit my options to one team. But while we're, talking about it, we should go ahead and talk about the Yankees. I know you wanted to talk about that was one of the first things that you mentioned that we should talk about on the podcast. Kind of give me your thoughts on the whole fiasco situation that happened on Saturday.
And for those who don't know, I mean, Miles Straw basically, the Cleveland Guardians outfielder basically said that Yankee fans were basically harassing him and all of that during one of their games on Saturday, and how they're the worst fan base on the world and all this other stuff. So, I mean, it was pretty wild to hear. I mean, I don't think the Yankees fan base is any different than any other fan base. It's just that when the Yankees, who have like what a ton more fans than any other team in the league and in sports overall, when they have like so many more fans in their fan base, it just increases the chances of being harassed by them. So I get where Straw's coming from, but to call the Yankees the worst fan base on the planet, that's quite a hyperbole. Where he was probably being super emotional, and I don't blame him either, considering what if what he said they said were true. I wouldn't blame him either if he was super emotional and upset and he said something like that. But I just feel like calling one fan base the worst in the league is pretty subjective and biased. And yeah, every fan base has their bad apples. It's just that the fact that the Yankees have one of the largest fan bases kind of amplifies that.
Yeah, it kind of makes it easier for you to, pick and choose and point out all the bad apples because there's so many more options to choose from, opposed to like, the Pittsburgh Pirates where they struggle to get fans or something like that. So, yeah, kind of my point of view of it because obviously, I'm a Yankee fan and people who watch this podcast and this channel know I'm a Yankee fan. Um, just point blank, there's no excuse for what the Yankee fans did. There's nothing that you can convince me that that was anything less than childish or immature. Did you find the video on Twitter? I actually found it, but did you find the video of somebody recording from the bleachers when Quan hit the left field wall when the condition or the health team or the trainer had to come out and check up on Quan because he hit the wall really hard. Did you find the video on Twitter at all?
No, I didn't. Can you just give me a quick summary of what happened to it?
So basically, fans were telling Quan to stay down. That is an actual quote. People telling him to stay down and get mad. I put get made because I can't spell, obviously, but get mad. And instantly what I think about that is obviously stay down. Obviously it sounds like they're cheering injuries, which is just as buffoonery as it can get. And then also the other statement that they were saying was get mad. I mean, are we 2-year-old? Are we like 4, 5, 6 year olds in elementary playground? Kind of insults. It just seems like a really pathetic and corny insult. To say get mad. You know what I mean? Like that's something that you would say in middle school or elementary school or something. Like kids, that aren't or that are immature, that are not mature in the slightest. And then I think the funniest thing, though, if there was anything comical to add, was I'm pretty sure they were Guardians fans. I don't think they were Yankee fans intimidating them. I think they were genuinely Guardians fans. But there was a guy in the background that was like, in the midst of people yelling at Quan and yelling at Straw and stuff, there was some guy that was like, I'm from Cleveland, go Guardians. And I was just like, it was just kind of funny for that to stick out the way it was. But, the main point is that they were telling Quan to stay down, get mad, which is just extremely immature. And then obviously, Miles Straw jumped up on the wall and told the guy, he was basically saying, hit me, like, hit me. Didn't happen, climbed back down, kind of cooled off for a minute. And then the whole walk-off with Gleyber Torres to right center field. Oscar Mercado gets something thrown on him, multiple things, some sort of trash, and then also empty beer cans. And then Aaron Judge and Giancarlo Stanton rush out there and are just like, guys, stop. Like, this is not only immature and disgusting, and you need to stop doing this. There's no reason to throw trash at the opposing team, especially when someone could get hurt. But also the fact that the Yankees just won the game. Like there's no reason to turn a negative into a positive. You know what I mean? There was no reason to do what they did. And I think the funny thing is also just the more outlandish thing is the fact that the person that they were initially throwing things at wasn't even Miles Straw. Like it wasn't even the guy who climbed up on the wall at left field and supposedly was talking trash and stuff. Even though there's a great portion of Yankee fans that were starting the drama. I know people kind of have their own beliefs and are like, well, Miles Straw shouldn't have got up there and said what he said. Well, in the heat of the moment, he's going to defend his teammate. And I don't blame Miles Straw for that. I don't blame him for defending his teammate one bit because Quan was obviously visibly hurt after crashing into the wall to make one of those plays. But, at the end of the day, why are you throwing things at Oscar Mercado? I mean, what did Mercado do? He did literally nothing. Jack. Zero. There's no reason. Even if it was Miles Straw, I would still say 110%. It would be childish, completely buffoonery-like behavior to throw things at him. But especially when you throw it at someone who had nothing to do with it in the first place, that's even worse. So, are there any other thoughts that you have about it?
No, I mean, it's just not surprising. I mean, when you combine, I'm sure you've been to games, not just MLB games, but, sports games in general, whether it's professional or college. But I'm sure you've been in those environments, and those environments can get pretty nasty pretty quickly when you combine, tribalism and alcohol together. You kind of, get those type of environments where stuff like this happens because, people are just not thinking straight or probably under the influence and all this other stuff. So it's not super surprising. This is just fans in general. I mean, it's not just Yankee fans. It's literally fans of every team in every sport in every country, not just in the United States. Like some of the things I've seen soccer fans do in Europe it's like nothing compared to this. So yeah, I mean, just I know Miles Straw said the Yankees have the worst fan base in the world, but like I say, he probably said that out of emotion than logical thinking.
Yeah, and when you say that, I immediately thought of you might know what I'm talking about, but I think it was an incident in Mexico between two different clubs there, and a lot of people ended up actually like dying from it. I don't know if you know what I'm talking about, but it's like, yeah, you are right. It can get a lot worse, much worse. Thankfully, that doesn't usually happen with American sports for the most part. We haven't had anything where like people are getting trampled to death and stuff like that, which is just awful in itself. But anyways, let's talk about some other stuff that's gone down. Miguel Cabrera's 3,000th hit. Did you watch the game? And if you haven't, what are your thoughts on it?
I didn't watch the game because I don't think I have the correct channels to watch it because MLB kind of sucks when it comes to allowing people to watch their games, but that's a whole different discussion. But yeah, I mean, Miguel Cabrera, one of the greatest hitters of this generation. I mean, I know he's been declining pretty nasty these last few years, but considering his peak, I mean, he won what back-to-back MVPs in 2012 and 2013, and I think he made like how many consecutive All-Star games in his to start his career off. So, Miguel Cabrera, one of the best hitters of this era, best hitters of all time. It's nice to see him reach 3,000 hits. We knew it was gonna happen eventually, but it's still nice to see him have his career celebrated, despite the fact that he's kind of struggles the last few seasons, which is to be expected for someone in his late 30s.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was actually gonna. I don't know the consecutive amount, but I do know that he's a 11-time All-Star, which is just insane. 2-time MVP, 7-time Silver Slugger, Triple Crown, 4-time batting title, World Series champion 2003 with the Marlins. I mean, he has had one heck of a Hall of Fame resume. I mean, no doubt about it. Almost 70 F4 player, career 919 OPS, 143 WRC plus. That's in 2,600 games. That is quite a bit of games. 3,002 hits right now with 502 home runs. It's just incredible to see what he's done. It has been very disappointing to kind of see his sharp decline over since I think 2017 is when it really started showing, where it was like a steep decline, which at the end of the day, like you said, it's going to happen eventually. Father Time's going to catch up with you, so there's nothing you can do about it. But I'm just finally happy that he ended up getting his home run record, which happened last year against the Blue Jays, if I'm not mistaken, and then he finally gets the 3,000th hit against the Colorado Rockies. So it's quite an experience. Very happy for Miguel Cabrera, one of a kind player. It's really unfortunate that he can't play forever at the peak level that he was at, like the 2012, 2013 area. I think that was the season where he ended up winning the Triple Crown. It's unfortunate we can't see that type of insane type of offense from him again, because that was quite a time. Like, we're never going to get another Miguel Cabrera back. But I actually wanted to ask you about something that doesn't actually have to do with the 3,000th hit that he got against the Rockies, but actually has to deal with the Yankees' decision the game before to intentionally walk him.
Oh man, I mean, I feel like that's kind of. I mean, I don't want to call it bush league because I feel like that term gets overused, but I mean that's kind of bush league. What would you say, bush league? Yes, to put it lightly. I mean, could you just tell me what the score of the game was? Was it a close game? Was the game already decided, or what was the context?
So the Tigers were up 1-0 in the 8th inning, and they walked Miguel Cabrera with the bases loaded because they had Lucas Luetge on the mound, who's a lefty, and they wanted to get the lefty-lefty matchup with Meadows. What ended up happening was karma ended up happening. In the moment, it was the right decision statistically, but sometimes baseball, it doesn't work like that. It happens. Meadows hits a bloop single out to shallow outfield, and then they ended up scoring 2 runs off of it and then taking a 3-0 lead. In the end, it didn't matter because the Yankees got shut out. They didn't score a single run because Jordan Montgomery was pitching. He's like basically the lesser version of DeGrom in the sense that he never gets any run support. But it was all part of a plan because the statistics showed that this would be the correct decision. And in the moment it is. Hindsight's 20/20. You look back on it and be like, okay, I wish I would have faced Cabrera. But kind of my only critique about it would be Miguel Cabrera had 3 other times that he could have gotten the 3,000th hit. And he ended up striking out several times against Jordan Montgomery. And that's the other thing. People were saying, oh, Jordan Montgomery nibbles too much. And I'm like, if you watch the Yankees, you'd understand that Jordan Montgomery is a type of pitcher that nibbles. He doesn't attack the zone. He's not like what Nestor Cortez has been, where he's attacking the zone repeatedly. He nibbles around the zone, and that's kind of the only thing that really irritates me about Montgomery is because he nibbles and then he ends up walking guys that he should have never walked in the first place. But if people would know that, they'd be like, oh, Jordan Montgomery, he's not trying to get around Cabrera because he doesn't want to. I'm sure he doesn't want to give up the 3,000th hit. I'm sure nobody wants to do that. Also, like, you didn't want to be the guy giving up the home run to break the home run record to Barry Bonds. I mean, you're not going to intentionally do that. But that's the thing too, and it's like no manager is going to intentionally be like, okay, we're going to let him have his 3,000th hit again. Just lob him a meatball right down the middle and hope that he hits it and gets a single off. Nobody's going to intentionally do that. You know, it's a baseball game. They don't care about personal achievements. The other 29 teams in that moment don't care about the achievement. They care about winning those individual games because every game in the end can matter, you know? So those are kind of my only takeaways from it. You know, Cabrera had multiple opportunities, and he ended up getting it anyways. That I think the only thing is that fans were upset because they intentionally walked him and they paid their hard-earned money to go to the game, and you know those people I don't fault. You know, them booing and stuff, that's fine. You know, any other fan would have booed in the same situation, so I don't blame them. I'm just more saying there was a reason behind intentionally walking Cabrera that statistics proves. In hindsight, it didn't work, but in the moment, that's what needed to be done, and in the moment, that's what they were thinking would have worked. And also, Jordan Montgomery likes to nibble a lot, and Miguel Cabrera had his opportunities. And then, you know, even Miguel Cabrera was like, I don't really care that they intentionally walked me because my on-base percentage went up. You know, like Miguel Cabrera knows he's going to get it. You know, he's not worried about that. He's more still worried about winning games for his ball team, especially the Tigers because they have a lot of young talent right now. I mean, a lot of people are interested in the Tigers. So that's kind of my 2 cents on it. Is there anything else that you wanted to add?
Yeah, well, I don't know that context, but now that you explain it to me, that I changed what I said. Like, I definitely agree with what you said. I mean, if there's a statistical advantage in a close game, then you know you gotta take it, even if you know, like you said, it takes away the chance of seeing someone accomplish a historical feat. On that end, I understand why why fans at the game might have been a little bit upset because how often do you get the chance to see someone potentially hit 3,000 career hits in a game? But you also understand, like, hey, I mean, like the players, the managers, the entire team, they get paid to win games, and considering that it was a 1-0 game, you still, you're still in it. You have to take every advantage you can get because, like you said, every game matters. And at the end of the season, a lot of these times, some of these, divisional and wildcard races end up decided by the slimmest of margins. So you gotta try to win as many games as possible throughout the season, even if you upset some fans because they were robbed, I guess, of a chance of seeing history.
Yeah. Alrighty. This was one thing that I wanted to talk to you about. This is actually completely fresh. This isn't from like a few days ago or anything like that. This is freshly new from actually yesterday. Well, technically 2 days ago when this podcast comes out, but for us, yesterday. It was, I don't know if you watched the Phillies and Brewers game the other night on Sunday night, but Angel Hernandez had a very rough night behind the plate. One of the worst I've seen in recent memory. Doesn't really surprise me because it is Angel Hernandez. A ball 4 on a 2-seam fastball off the corner of the plate. Made it. I think the most interesting part about it was Schwarber made it very clear that Angel missed calls up, missed down, missed inside, missed outside. But it wasn't like he was just like, "Oh, you're screwing us over. You're screwing our opportunities over for the Phillies, for my team." No, he wasn't even just subjecting just the Phillies to that, kind of unfairness and stuff. He was also mentioning the fact that he was screwing over calls for the Brewers as well. So, and that's why he went up to the plate. He's like down, up, side to side, it points to the Brewers dugout, points to the Phillies dugout. Like, Angel Hernandez really did a poor job for both teams. It wasn't just a one-way street kind of thing. But what are your thoughts about it?
Well, I mean, I don't think it's a good thing if you know an umpire's full name by heart, and that's basically the case with Angel Hernandez. I mean, he's basically notorious for being, one of the worst umpires in the entire sport. And Sunday was just another example of that. I mean, but the only difference is that you saw a player, retaliate and not, take the professional way out by not expressing himself publicly. I mean, I've been watching baseball for like a decade now, and I don't think I've ever seen a player be that animated with an umpire. So it was pretty wild to see. I mean, do you think what do you think of that? Do you think that's probably that could potentially, bite Schwarber in the ass later? Because, a lot of the times all these umpires, like, buddy buddies, and if you publicly So you humiliate one of them like that, it could, really, cause them to not give you, a favorable call every now and then, which could really, affect your season. What do you just think of that, or am I just overthinking it?
I don't think that you're on like a wrong track or anything like that. Like I definitely feel like you kind of have to be careful, but at the same time, I mean that was a 1-0 ball game. I mean, bottom of the ninth, the Phillies were still an opportunity to tie the game up and such. The only run that had scored was a sac fly from the Brewers. I think it was Christian Yelich that hit it. And it was a very intense tight game. And the Phillies have obviously been struggling. I mean, they have more losses than wins. I think they're fourth place in the NL East right now. I don't quote me on that, but I think they're fourth right now. I'm pretty sure even the Marlins have a bet. The Marlins are second, Braves are third, Phillies fourth, and then Mets are first, and then Nationals are fifth. I think that's how the standings are right now. I haven't looked at it, but I do know that the Phillies are struggling. They have more losses than wins. They haven't gotten off to the start that they hope to. But here's something interesting that I found is Angel Hernandez's scorecard. Have you ever seen the scorecard account where they post the
Oh
scorecards
yeah,
for
for
every
sure.
umpire?
It's one of my favorite baseball accounts.
So the results showed that he had an 88% overall accuracy, which is just awful, and a 88 overall percent consistency, and plus 0.77 runs for Milwaukee, which obviously Philadelphia, they did get a lot more terrible calls, but I'm not going to pretend like the Brewers didn't get some bad calls either, because they definitely did. And even Schwarber pointed that out when he was arguing with Angel when he got ejected. But, strike call accuracy 77%. The average is 88%, and he got a whole 11% underneath that. And then the ball accuracy wasn't as bad. I mean, the average was 97%, and he called 94%. So it's not like terrible, terrible. But what jumps out immediately is the 77% strike zone accuracy. And if you see some of these calls, you can tell that Schwarber was correct. I mean, the strike zone, there's calls obviously on the inside, there's calls on the outside that were clearly balls that were called strikes. There's one high call, there was several ball calls that could have been a strike, could have been a ball, and then there were some lower calls too. So it was all over the place. There were a lot of bad calls, and I felt like every time I popped onto Twitter, while watching the game, I see, in the second inning, Angel Hernandez does this. Oh, in the fifth inning, he does this. Oh, in the bottom of the ninth inning, he does it. It's become such a problem. It's become a very significant problem for God knows how long. I don't even know how long it's been an issue for it. As long as I can remember. But I wanted to ask this to you real quick. What do you think should happen for an umpire like Angel Hernandez, or someone who repeatedly just does a terrible job at his job, where he misses a ridiculous amount of calls that the ordinary umpire does not miss?
Well, I mean, I feel like what should happen to him is should be what happens to anybody else who works in any other job where they're not meeting expectations, and get punished, whether it's getting losing a promotion, working less hours, or simply being let go. I mean, that's how it is with other jobs. Um, but yeah, I mean that's probably the best case scenario. I mean, not just in baseball, but like in all sports. Like we always hear about fans complaining about how bad officiating is. So um, I feel like the only way this gets fixed is I know this is like an easy cop out answer, but I think electronic umpires, robotic umpires is probably the only way to get long term change, because I just feel like people, especially a lot of the umpires are like on the older side, who are probably in their 60s, 50s. They just have that slower reaction time. I mean, if umpires if the general umpire is around that age range, then it's really not their fault that they're missing a ton of calls, because that's just their human body slowly losing its edge and its speed. So in terms of fixing umpiring with human beings, I feel like this is probably as good as it gets. But in terms of fixing umpiring with, technology, I feel like there's some potential there. I just don't know how committed, Major League Baseball is to, fix that problem.
Mm-hmm. And I actually saw something interesting from Justin Verlander today, where he talked about the potential of having kind of a system where you can challenge whether a call is a ball or a strike, and if you miss that challenge, you don't get another one. You don't get another appeal. But if you get it right, then you keep getting appeals until you get something wrong. Would you like a system like that, or do you think a system like that would be bad for the game?
Man, I feel like that would extend games, would it? I mean, baseball is already trying to cut down on time, and but letting teams potentially, review balls and strikes is just gonna add more time to the games, which Major League Baseball is trying to cut down on. But yeah, I mean, it's tough because on one hand, you're wanting to limit games to like less than 3 hours, 4 hours, but to attract younger fans. But on the other hand, you lose the ability to let improve the umpires by allowing teams to challenge whether balls are balls or strikes are strikes. So I don't know. It's a delicate balance that I guess Rob Manfred and Major League Baseball needs to find.
Hmm. Yeah, right on. So I kind of wanted to talk about, just as kind of a filling section or a closing section to the podcast, since we've talked about pretty much the biggest things that has happened in baseball as of lately. What are just kind of some of your thoughts about the season in general? I mean, from an offensive, pitching, or fielding. Sorry, a fielding standpoint. Has there been any names that have surprised you, or any names that obviously it's no shocker that they're doing well, or anything like that?
Well, I mean, everybody knows that I'm a Ranger fan, so really the only games I watch were Rangers games. I'm just a little bit. I mean, I'm not super surprised, but I'm just a little bit. I guess surprised that Marcus Semien has started off as slowly as he did, but at the same time, the season's 16 games old for the Rangers, but and Marcus Semien, I mean, I was looking for his stats. He's historically a slow starter. I think his April splits are probably his worst splits of any month in his career. So I mean, just a little bit surprising that Semien starting off as slow as he did. Corey Seager too, to a lesser extent. So there's that, but like I said, we're just 16 games into the season, so I'm sure they'll both have, especially in Simmons' case, they'll both have plenty of time to turn it around. And I bet the Rangers probably hope so, well, considering that they committed $500 million to both of them.
Yeah, pretty much. I actually wanted to ask you some questions. It's kind of a guessing game. I don't expect you to get any of these right or anything like that. Be probably surprised unless you looked over Fangraphs extensively beforehand. But so obviously about WRC plus. That's probably pretty much the best offensive hitting statistic that you can find. Do you know who has the highest WRC plus in the league as of right now?
Oh man, is it Nathaniel Lowe?
It is not. Nathaniel Lowe, actually, if I'm not mistaken, was leading an average with like a 404 at one point, but no, it's not him. But yeah, I do know that he was leading with average at one point.
Okay, who is it then?
It is Ty France from the Mariners.
I got the division right.
Yeah. Ty France has been insane, especially this last week. I mean, he's been killing baseballs. He's been punishing them. I actually watched one of the games the other day when they were playing their series against the Royals, and they intentionally walked Ty France. I'm like, wow, that's crazy. Ty France isn't really a guy that you think, oh, we're going to intentionally walk him, but he had been killing the Royals all series long, basically, and they were just like, we want nothing to do with this guy, so we're just intentionally walk him. Are there any stats that you know of that who's leading, like F4, slugging, any of that? Any that you want to take a jab at?
Oh man, no, your guess will probably be better than mine, but no, I don't know the leaders of any of those, but you give them to me. Who are they?
Okay, so this isn't really a surprise. Arenado is leading in F4. Jazz Chisholm is leading in slugging. On base percentage is Seiya Suzuki. And then average, which I didn't know this before I looked it up, I was kind of surprised, is Andrew Benintendi with the Royals. Jose Ramirez, 20 RBIs. That's kind of not a shocker. And then home runs, it's actually tied. There's 4 guys that have 6. There's Ozzy Albies, Byron Buxton, CJ Crone, and Jock Peterson. So is there anything that you find kind of interesting about those group of leaders?
Well, I mean, not in those group of leaders, but I'm a little bit surprised at just how this is a little bit off track. But I'm a little bit surprised just how well Jeremy Pena's been for the Astros. I mean, I think he leads the Astros in WAR so far this season. I think I remember reading an athletic article where basically Astros scouts were hoping that Pena can be, just a above average starter for the Astros, and 15 games to the season or whatever, however many games it is, he's been, the Astros' best hitter so far. It's just kind of wild to see it, and I'm just a little bit envious that it seems like the Astros have no problems, replacing guys they lose in free agency with guys in their farm. I mean, I'm sure Pena's gonna, come back down to earth eventually, but it's still an impressive start.
Mm-hmm. And I'm assuming you probably saw that walk-off home run he hit on Sunday, I think it was, against the Blue Jays.
Yeah, that was crazy to see. I think I had a couple people that I know at that game, so yeah, pretty wild.
What was your cousin at that game by any chance or no? He was.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I actually didn't even ask him. I've been meaning to because I haven't talked to him much, but I've been meaning to ask him how he feels about Jeremy Pena because he's been.
Oh, they love him, man. Oh man, they love Jeremy Pena.
Does he got a jersey of his already?
I'm not sure, but they love him for sure. I think they have a nickname for him too. I forgot what it was, but yeah.
All right, Clemente. I need to ask you something real quick though.
All right.
What do you think about the Space City jerseys that the Astros came out with? Are they good? Are they fire? Are they trash?
Oh man, I mean I like them, but I mean I'm not really a fashion connoisseur, so my opinion shouldn't really matter to you. But I mean, for my taste, I thought they're pretty good. I like the design.
Gotcha. I liked them. I thought it was kind of funny that I think it was the first day that they wore them was when Ohtani went 7 innings or something like that with I think it was 12 strikeouts and shut them out through 7 innings at least. And then I know a lot of people were like, nope, we're done. We're going to go ahead and retire the Astros Space City jerseys on the first day because they're bad luck. They're rotten luck, which, it is what it is. It's actually funny that you mentioned Pena because I want to talk about him just a little bit. He actually leads. He's tied with Dansby Swanson for most outs above average in the league right now.
Wow, I mean, that's like I said, Pena's been has been the Astros' best hitter so far this season. So to hear that is not wild. It's not that crazy years, but yeah, it's still super impressive for somebody who is already 24 years old, and expectations for him were just to be, a decent starter.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, honestly, if you're an Astros fan, you're honestly walking on cloud 9 right now. After not extending Correa and getting him back and re-signing him back to the Astros, and then you got Jeremy Pena, who's been filling that role really well. He's been hitting really well, and he's been playing great defense. It seems like every time I watch an Astros game or every time I look on Twitter and see a highlight, every day it seems like they're posting a highlight of Jeremy Pena making a nice play, slide and grab to his left, to his right. He is a very exciting player, very good for baseball in general. And I kind of want to ask you, since you're a Rangers fan, I don't expect it to keep going, and I obviously picked the Astros to win the division, and I still think they will. I do think teams like the Mariners will give them a little bit of run for their money. I mean, the Mariners have been very good as of lately. But what have you kind of thought about the Astros' slow start so far?
I mean, I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that Jose Altuve and Cal Tucker have, been off to a slow start as well. And, as good as Pena has been, I mean, ideally, Pena isn't, your leader in the WAR by the end of the season, and you're the Astros. So a lot has to do with the fact that, some of the hitters are just, struggling a bit. But, Altuve and Kyle Tucker, I mean, Kyle Tucker was, an MVP, dark horse candidate for some people before the season started. So, I'm sure Altuve is going to turn it around here pretty soon. Alex Bregman's been hitting the ball better recently. So yeah, a lot of it is just has to do with the fact that the guys that you expect to hit aren't hitting right now. But like I said, it's only a couple weeks into the season. It's a long season. I'm sure they'll turn it around.
Yeah, exactly. Um, are there any predictions that you had before we did the podcast or just before the season even started that you might want to change your mind about? Anything that you maybe underestimated already? I mean, obviously, like you said, the season's still young, but is there anything that you're kind of like, wow, this guy is blowing my mind, or this team looks really good right now?
Man, I was high on John Gray before the season, and that's because he was going to be the Rangers' best starter. But he's already made two separate IL trips. And I guess my expectations for him has tempered a bit. Now I'm expecting someone to have a ERA, have a FIP at around a 3 to 5 range, somewhere around that area. And if that's the case, then that's a really good, high end number two, number three starter, which is a long way for the Rangers because the Rangers right now don't have the best pitching staff. I think they're like almost bottom in the league in any stat that you look up in terms of pitching. So, but if John Gray becomes your second, third best starter on an ideal Rangers team, then I think that's a really good thing to have.
Yeah, pretty much. Is there anything else that you want to go ahead and say real quick before we go ahead and wrap this podcast up?
Man, are we just not going to address the elephant in the room dealer between you and Gary Sheffield Shoe Jr.?
Oh, you were waiting for me. I was almost trying to see if I could get away without talking about that. So, what is it that you want to know exactly about it? Is the key word?
Well, nothing really. I just want to get your thoughts on it because I feel like it kind of exemplifies just the big disconnect between Gen Z baseball fans and like boomer baseball fans, where older baseball fans just don't see the value in sabermetrics and advanced analytics, while younger baseball fans have a better understanding as to why they're valuable and like why they're kind of taking over the game.
Yeah, so initially, probably the first thing I want to say is I don't dislike the guy. I never hated the guy. Obviously, hate's a strong word. I don't hate very many people, if any, really at all that I can think of. But I don't dislike the guy and never have, never followed him, still haven't followed him. But basically, kind of the whole thing that annoyed me about it was just kind of the sense or giving this kind of viewpoint that if you like a stat like WRC plus, then you're a nerd. I mean, that was kind of his intentions, was kind of mocking people who say this is what this guy's WRC plus is, and then post like a nerd gif from South Park, which I know that's from South Park. That might be sad or not, but anyways, that was kind of the problem I had with it, and that was why I was like, tell me that you're ignorant without telling me that you're ignorant. And, then he kind of goes on a spree of, you called me a name. And I'm like, since when is calling someone ignorant because they don't know about something that they're spewing garbage about? When did that become name calling? I mean, I feel like at that point you're playing the victim card. I don't know. It might just be me. It might just be my opinion. I might be biased. I'm open for interpretation. I'm open for conversation. Point is, I don't dislike the guy. I'm sure he has a lot of good stuff going for him. I'm not going to be one of those guys that's like, oh, he's only popular because of his dad and stuff, because I just don't care about drama like that. I don't want to get into it. Really, the only thing that I had a problem with was him kind of downplaying advanced stats without even knowing what they're good for. And that's the thing. Like, if he even knew a little bit about WRC Plus and understood how it worked and why it betters teams and why it's important to evaluate players accurately off of, he would know that his dad would be significantly better. Like, if they didn't just look at, the outdated old stats like average, if they looked at WRC Plus for like Gary Sheffield, he would be significantly better. Like, his production value would go so much more north if we were basing his career off of WRC Plus than like a stat like average. So that's kind of the thing. I don't really know what else to say. I kind of hope that in the future, he can kind of educate himself a little bit more about WRC Plus. And I wasn't the only one who was saying something. I mean, I could have said so much worse. I don't really know why ignorant would be the worst choice of words. I mean, even people were like, dude, all this kid does is post highlight videos, and that was the thing. He even called me fake, and I'm like looking. I'm like, is there anything that I can remember in the back of my mind that shows that I'm a fake human being? Like, is there anything? Like, try not to be biased. Like, genuinely thinking about it, being like, with how I tweet, with what I do on stuff, could I actually be fake? And then I'm kind of like, there's nothing I can come up with. I'm a genuine, humble person. I don't care about followers. I mean, I do to a degree, because I wouldn't do this, because it's nice to have interactions and engagements and supporters. But at the end of the day, if I have 10K followers, if I have 100K followers, if I have 1 million followers, I'm going to be the same person who I am right now with 3.5K. That's not going to change, because I've always had that core belief that I don't really care how many followers you have. It doesn't really give you the right, in my opinion. It will vary person to person, but in my opinion, no matter how many followers you have, never gives you a reason to act like a jerk, give you this high and almighty status that it's my way or the highway, kind of narcissistic view or anything. And I'm not saying Gary Sheffield Jr. is like that. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying in general, the general consensus or the general kind of vibe that, oh, I have more followers than you, then that means I'm better than you. That's just not true. It's not true at all. So, I mean, that's all I really can say about it. Was there anything else that you wanted to know about it?
Nah, I mean, just know that you ratioed him every time, Dillard. I mean, the public have spoken, public opinion have spoken with that. So, yeah, I mean, I'm surprised just how patient you were, Dillard. I mean, most people, including me, would have just ignored the dude.
I mean, like I was trying my best. Like, I wasn't asking for people to go up and support me and have my back. Like I had the conversation under control, but it was nice of all those people to back me up and be like, yo, like, you're trying to start drama with someone who posts highlights. Like, he's the nicest dude in the world. I'm not saying this either. This is all my followers and all these people that have been following me for a while saying it. So it's not like me, kind of tooting my own horn or something like that. It's other people saying it, because, I know how I am. I know how I act and, who I am as a person. So I don't have to prove that to anybody but myself. As long as I'm making myself happy and proving myself wrong, or proving myself right, for the better lack of term, that's really all that matters to me. As long as I'm treating people with respect, which I always do. I don't like getting fights on Twitter and stuff like that. That happened to be the biggest beef that I've gotten into, except outside for the guy that I argued with on Barstool Sports once. But it at the end of the day, it happens. I don't have any hard feelings with anybody that I argue with. It's Twitter. It happens. We all disagree to agree. It's whatever. So that's all there is to it. So, is there anything else that you wanted to talk about, add on, or are you good?
I think that's a good way to end the pod.
Alrighty, sounds good. Thank you, everyone who's listened to the podcast. If you haven't already, definitely subscribe to the YouTube channel so you don't miss a video, and click that bell notification. Also, like the video, comment below, and we will see you guys on the next video.